I think there was always a good time to start a company. And a lot of people talk about it. I think very few of them that I've interacted with have actually gone and done it. If you're fine going and doing 50 pitches and getting 50 no's, cool. Point being is like there's elements to it that you're not going to like that are going to be different than what you thought. Everything is going to be a lot harder. If that drives you, then great.
In this episode of Inside the Silicon Mind, we're excited to welcome Ross Lazerowitz, co-founder and CEO of Mirage Security, pioneer in AI-powered social engineering defense, and former head of product at Observe. With over a decade in cybersecurity, Ross has worked in SOC operations, led product management at Splunk, and helped bring early AI-driven security solutions to market. At Mirage, he develops simulations and training to counter threats like deepfake impersonations. In this episode, we dive into how AI is transforming social engineering, why identity verification is a growing challenge, and what the next wave of cyber attacks could look like in an era of deepfakes and human-targeted threats.
You've been around now a year and a half, 2 years. How are you finding it?
It's one of the hardest things I've done. It's also one of the most fun things I've done. I've been in leadership roles and I've run teams, I've hired people, I've done all these things. It's different emotionally when the buck stops with you.
We live in a world where AI can now fake your voice, write your messages, and even learn how to manipulate your emotions. Do you think the age of human authenticity is already over?
I think it's over and it's been over for quite some time.
Wow, what a start. One part is terrifying. The other part is, where is this heading? What's your take?
I rarely go on Facebook. I still have one, and like my parents use it. And I think a lot of people have noted on other social media platforms, like on Twitter, that if you go on Facebook now, it's mostly like AI-generated content. It's kind of bizarre. It's like all these videos, and you have people fighting in the comments with like other AIs. Like, I don't know, there's this whole thing called the dead internet theory, that the internet's not real anymore, and everything is kind of simulated. And I don't know, more and more I kind of start to believe that.
We did this training session with a company that was supposed to help my team build out their content strategy online, just put more social posts out there to drive engagement, to become a thought leader. And the entire training conducted by this company was all about how you can use ChatGPT to write your content for you. We cut it very quickly. We cut it all short because we realized that, where's the real self in all of this? I think AI is great. There's a lot of awesome things you can do with it. But the worry is, where's the human interaction? How is that going to be impacted?
Yeah, I think we're going to go back to more in-person stuff. I think especially from a security standpoint. So have you heard about the North Korean hackers getting like IT jobs at companies in the United States?
No, tell me.
So, I think a good chunk of North Korea's GDP is like Bitcoin now, like their ransomwares and things like that. But the FBI put out, there's been a few reports on this, but basically, North Korea, they have these big farms of folks that are really, really good at taking computer science interviews. And they've gone out and gotten jobs at least 100 US companies, including government agencies, defense contractors. Yeah, they have people that work with them in the US that can have laptop farms. Like there's this, one of the people that was helping them, she was filming TikTok videos, and behind her, you could see a rack of laptops. So they have addresses in the US. They have people that act as couriers that can pick up documents for them. And there's been anecdotes of when they've gotten, found out, managers have said, but that was like the best person on my team.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a big problem with remote work to be able to go and you don't really, we've done background checks. A lot of companies haven't done identity verification, which is like a totally different problem. And at least in the US, actually really difficult because there's no centralized authenticity or there's no centralized database of personhood in the United States. That's why everyone, the Social Security number, I'm sure you guys have something similar, but it was originally, created for retirement, and the Social Security Administration was very adamant that you should use it as identification, but other agencies grabbed it because there was no other number they could use. So we've never really had a good system for doing this. Driver's licenses in the US, every state has their own system. There's this effort for real ID, which you may have heard about. We're trying to, the federal government's going to have standards for IDs, but it's still very disjoint and not required. So it's a hard problem. If you have a document that says, I'm Ross, it could be a fake ID. How do you really know and detect it?
How do you know to fight against it?
Fight against the identity verification problem?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think anyone solved it. There's a lot of companies that will kind of KYC, know your customer style checks, where they can basically scan your driver's license and then you move your face around. But those things can kind of be defeated. So I think it depends on your adversary. I think for a lot of companies, that's probably going to be enough. And we'll see it be integrated into things like Okta and Entra, where you'll be able to reset your password by doing a scan. Like these products are kind of coming and already in market. My personal belief is Estonia and Germany are really ahead of the curve on this stuff. The driver's licenses in Estonia and Germany have a smart card on them. It's actually, do you know what a YubiKey is? Like a security key?
Right. Yeah.
This little device you can plug in. It can act as one of those. So my belief, and this is far out, is that we're going to need like governments to start basically, creating identification documents that are like, basically physical security tokens, and they'll act as the trust source. Because the things they make you do, go into a DMV, show your, passport and a birth certificate and a utility bill. It's not foolproof, but like the people abroad can't go and do this. And that's what we're seeing a lot of right now. At least for that use case, there's another use case of me hiring someone overseas to do my job for me, but that's a different threat vector.
We'll definitely come to that, because that's one of the topics I wanted to discuss with you is how AI is impacting hiring. But just to start off with, you are the founder and CEO of Mirage Security. Great business. You and I have had a deep conversation around it. I've made a joke that on one of our Zoom meetings, I didn't know if I was speaking to you or if it was an AI. Tell us about the company. What does it do? What's the problem you're solving?
My co-founder, Nick, and I, we spent a lot of time researching ideas. And we going into this, I always tell people we had like a spreadsheet, and we stack ranked the ideas, and we looked at kind of the impact of the problem, market risk, technical risk. And we went out and we just tried to like build small things and sell them. And this was actually a second idea. We had a pivot, which I can talk about later in the whole startup recruiting fundraising section. I kind of had this realization. So for background, my first job was working at a very large US bank in what's called their security operations center, doing tier 1 analysis. Basically, it's like a security room, but for cybersecurity. So we get alerts, right? And there's 800,000 servers, 300,000 people. So we're pretty busy. And we're just looking at trying to figure out, is this alert legit or is it noise? And a lot of it's noise. And I got to basically see how a massive enterprise got compromised constantly. And at that point in time, the technology controls for security were like really, really bad. So that was kind of the path of least resistance, meaning like things like multi-factor authentication, like you probably get a code for some of the apps that you use now. A lot of accounts didn't have that. A lot of software wasn't up to date. We did something called perimeter security, meaning you put big firewalls on the outskirts of your network. And then if someone gets in, well, you can't see them anymore. A lot of that stuff in the last 20 years has kind of been getting solved. It's not perfect, but the trend is going in the way that I think technology is going to be not a solved problem, but pretty close. So what's left? The human. The path of least resistance will increasingly be people. So we wanted to build a company around this idea of human security. There's network security, there's application security, there's database security. How do we secure the human? And where we've decided to start with that is by, the saying that a good, what is it? Offense is the best defense. Let's go and simulate attacks, social engineering attacks that are realistic. So what's social engineering? It's a really fancy way of saying tricking people and being deceptive. And there's an art to it, right? Like there's things you can do like using social proof and reciprocity, and there's ways to persuade someone. But at the end of the day, a lot of these attacks that we're seeing now are not technically sophisticated. So you're in the UK. Anyway, recently there was two very large retail organizations in the UK that were taken down for I think 5 days. Like people on Reddit were saying how they literally couldn't buy coffee. They couldn't buy coffee beans because the system didn't work. And that was by a group called Scattered Spider, who also took down MGM and Caesars casinos for a few days. And a lot of people think hacker, they think there's a guy in a dark room and he's in a hoodie, or she's in a hoodie, or maybe it's in Eastern Europe or whatever. These are 17-year-olds in the UK and the US that are doing something called voice phishing. They literally will call the IT support help desk, normally outsourced, and be like, hey, it's me, John Johnson, I can't get into my account. And there's more to it than that, but that's kind of what they're doing. They're getting access, and then they're getting an admin account, and then they're compromising everything. So that's kind of social engineering. And there's been a big shift in it, moving from, hey, you get an email and it looks like a PayPal invoice, and you click it, to what I call highly sophisticated multi-vector attacks, meaning it could be a phone call, it could be a text message, it could be an email, it can be a deepfake video, which we'll get to, that's what's coming. So we simulate those. So we have an AI that goes out and it can call people on the phone and impersonate an executive at the organization or your support team, whoever. We have a way to build these things in a content library that's mined off of the attacks that we're seeing. It can send emails. It can go out and call people back, leave voicemails, do everything a human could to go basically figure out the risk in the organization and test all the controls. So that's kind of the core part. There's some other stuff that we do on training, as well as giving employees a AI assistant to report issues to that can do first level triage, get screenshots, because these things are often on personal phones. But that's kind of Mirage in a nutshell.
Well, share us a real life situation where one of your customers, you were able to do this, and what happened. You don't need to obviously mention the name of the customer, but an actual real life story.
There's a thing in my wall over here that's an email that has the we got a meme from our customer. And I'll talk about our first customer who was a design partner, because They work with us for, it took months to get this thing right. The bot called into a help desk. And bear in mind, this is not scripted, but we can listen to it. And it was impersonating not an executive, but someone one level down. And often the attackers do this. A lot of people think it's like going to be your CEO calling. And like, no, a lot of times they'll pick someone that's like, that you know, but don't know personally, because you're not likely to know their voice or likeness or to contact them. So we called into the support desk, and almost immediately we applied a lot of pressure. The administrator ended up opening up access of the geo restriction to the world. So prior to that, because this person doesn't travel much, you can only log in from the US. They removed that within the first 30 seconds of the phone call, kind of in a panic. And it started the reset process before we kind of came in and told them to slow it down.
Wow.
Yeah, people should follow the process, but how do you know until you test them? You really don't.
If you didn't stop them, what would happen? How far could this go?
Probably could have gone all the way. There would have been a point where you get an email. It's hard to say, but that was kind of the goal for their simulation. We've worked with organizations where we've captured credentials for 15% of the company. The system is doing a lot better than I thought it would do. This is the worst the technology is ever going to be. So it's kind of like every time these things run, they're running automatically. We look at them, we're like, whoa, that's new, that's novel. I gave a talk in Colorado last week on AI and social engineering. One of the things I kind of postulated with everyone was, is there any reason that an AI can't learn to social engineer people? And actually everyone in the room kind of agreed unanimously that there's really no reason, given the way that these models learn, that you can't train an AI to do what humans are doing and do it at scale. And we've kind of done that already. And I imagine our adversaries, right, the bad guys in this, aren't that far behind us right now.
Going slightly off topic, but what happens when AI knows you better than you know yourself?
So what's a good analogy for this? How addictive is TikTok and Instagram?
Yeah, those 30-second, 20-second videos were very addictive during the pandemic.
But the feed changes.
It keeps you going,
a few swipes, and they've been doing machine learning at scale. So we're already able to addict people to things using it. I just as a meta thing, right? I think there's a different, within social engineering, there's probably a different spin in that. But broadly, I think we don't want to admit this, but we're actually not that complicated socially. Why does social engineering work when humans do it? It's because people fall for the same sorts of things. Yeah, I don't think that, maybe human intelligence, S tier human intelligence is a bit rarer, but I think we all exhibit the same social behaviors and patterns, and it's pretty easy for an AI to learn what makes a really good salesperson.
Yeah, your ability to build rapport, your ability to read the room. This is where concepts and training sessions like neurolinguistic programming came into place. Is to understand your customers' body language, how that interacts with the way they speak, the way they think. Now, if you could teach an AI that, what could happen, right? It's scary, but at the same time, if we sort of take the positive out of it, what are the benefits of getting to a world where, whether it's in the palm of your hand, whether it's what OpenAI are trying to do now with their new technology that they're looking to build with the recent acquisition they made, where could this go? Where could AI become synonymous with a human, where it's an extension of who you are and you have your own AI and it knows you, understands you, probably knows you better than you do, knows how you feel, maybe knows that you're about to get sick?
I think we're kind of already there. Not with the getting sick part, but I think I give a lot of context to my ChatGPT, and I've tried to plug into more and more things. And why is Apple trying to build a device? Well, these things they feed off context, right? So every conversation you've had, they'll get better. And a few months ago, I wanted to build my own AI voice assistant, since we build that, I build those for a living. And I wanted to do really basic things on my iPhone. I want to be able to use Find My to find out how far away a friend is or significant other. And I wanted to be able to send iMessages and check calendar, and all that stuff is locked down. You cannot do that via API. That's part of Apple's moat, right? OpenAI is kind of forced to go into the device world. And I don't know if they'll be successful, but they want to get more of that context, right? If ChatGPT was really natively in an iPhone right now, it'd be an amazing experience, even with how bad some of this stuff is compared to where it's going to go.
Lots of great topics for us to discuss here and unpack, but here's another interesting one. With OpenAI trying to do you see that world? Do you see a world where we no longer use these phones and there's a different type of device that we'll walk around with?
I don't know. I'm bad at predicting the future. As we've entered different media ages, the other ones have never gone away. We still have radio, we still have TV, we still have movies, right? We still have MP3 files, we still have streaming. So I think the reality is that these are core human senses: hearing, right, seeing, interacting with something. So I think that having a visual display of information is a very high bandwidth way to display information. So is the screen in glasses? Is it a thing you carry around anymore? I don't know. We'll probably continue to have something like that, because if you can't watch a movie when you're on your commute, you're going to want to do that.
It's been attempted, right? I don't know if you know the company Humane, who tried to attempt something that unfortunately didn't work out?
I had a friend that worked there, and actually the smart glasses thing has been tried. I had a friend at a company called ODG, which was doing smart glasses in like 2015 or 16, like way before a lot of this. And that company unfortunately folded. But we've been working on this display technology for a very, very long time. And it's like there's real physics challenges with doing stuff that I think a lot of us don't appreciate.
Let's go back to the beginning, right? You and I have known each other for years. You were at Observe. Prior to that, you were at Splunk. You started your own company. The idea and forming it, one of the most important stages of starting a company is fundraising. And it's a topic that I bring up in all these episodes that I have with founders. And it's an interesting one because I think that the community that we work within, it loves to hear how you go about fundraising. How do you think about pitch deck? How do you engage the investors to get them excited? But before all of that, what to you, what was the emotional cost of the fundraising process? How are you able to decipher between I'm starting my own business, but at the same time, it could be emotionally draining, right? To make sure you secure that funding.
The fundraising process it's very, very intense. And I think one of the things about it that makes it challenging is there's no standard process that you can like follow. There's a high level process, but the reality is like every firm is like, especially at the vibe stage, you're doing a seed fundraise, right? You have no metrics, right? I think I had someone tell me that revenue was a vibe, and like they like episode of Silicon Valley, and they were right. Like it really doesn't matter at the seed stage. People are just kind of deciding, and they're making a judgment about you and your idea and your team and all that stuff. And the feedback that you get, you can never really trust because a lot of VCs don't want to burn any bridges in case they're successful down the road. So often you don't know, and also they want to tell you, I just didn't like you, right? So I think a lot of people go a little crazy during this process because they react to all this feedback, and the feedback is all different, and inconsistent, not generalizable, because it's not real feedback. And it's really hard to get that unless it's someone you know really closely that's being honest with you, which a lot of people just don't want to hurt your feelings. So that part can make you go a little crazy because it's like you're trying to iterate sometimes, and you don't even know which thing to iterate on. We did a lot. I mean, we did a pre-seed and the seed. The seed, we did a lot of pitches, and we did it at the end of the year in 2023, which was not a great time to fundraise. And we got it done, and I'm very happy with our investors, and we ended up having a really nice outcome. But like, it was rough, and it was, I mean, I think it was just like a month of us just going and pitching, and that was it. You're not going to really make progress on anything else, which is really frustrating. You're just tired by the end of the day. Things just like change really, really quickly, and you're kind of pivoting and hopping around. And you might go from meeting someone to maybe let's meet tomorrow, and you're moving that around, and you're trying to get your calendar tight. I think we're lucky that a lot of people wanted to meet with us and took a lot of our intros. Some people have a different experience where no one even wants to meet with them, and how do you go from there? So everyone's experience is so different depending on who you know, where you came from, and if you've really done this before.
How much of it depends on who you know and the companies you worked at prior to thinking about starting a company?
Hard to say. I think if you like invented TCP/IP or the transformer, you know, like there's a tier of people where like if you just did a thing, there's this social proof thing that will happen. That's a very few amount of people. It can help if you worked at the right company. It's by no means like, okay, here's your golden ticket, you're good, right? Unless you did something that's really amazing, phenomenal, like, you know, you invented the internet, right?
The reason I ask that is because a lot of the business that we conduct is our partnerships with VCs. And every time I'm on the phone to a partner at a VC firm, one of the first questions they ask me is, who do you know is thinking about starting?
Yep.
How's that founder network? It's interesting, right? Because I think perception is power. Serendipity is such a real thing in Silicon Valley. But you're right. You know, you and Nick would have probably spent a month, had some meetings, had many meetings. A lot of people know you, respect you. But there are also some great founders out there who don't have that network, probably spent most of their career too much into what they're building and not going out there and socializing and meeting people or getting to know the community within Silicon Valley. How challenging is it for someone like that to get in front of investors and get the traction?
Mileage may vary. It just depends. I think it's, honestly, being a first-time founder, I think it's always just hard. Like, I remember when we finished this process, I went to a mentor of mine who has a very successful company, and I was like, why didn't you tell me it was like this? And he said, if I told you how hard it was, you probably wouldn't have done it. And I think I still would have done it, but like, he wasn't wrong. It's, I think people have this really serendipitous view of how it works first time around if you didn't already have an exit, right? And it's hard. I mean, it's not like I'm working in the field or in like a mine, you know, but it is emotionally exhausting.
You know, what made you do it? Because you're at Observe and head of products. Everyone loves you there. You're doing a great job. You and I work together as well. What made you think it's time to go and start something?
I've always wanted to do this. Actually, I started a company in college, but it was going to grow like a small business. So I sold it. It's still around, actually. It was a digital advertising company in Syracuse, New York, that was originally putting digital signage in businesses. We were trying to build an ad network, and I was doing that, and I kind of realized I was like freshman, sophomore year, that I really wasn't going to like learn from that. What I was starting to realize was like a growth, like a startup that had growth potential, right? That could have a power law in its growth. And I realized that I needed to get like knowledge around. I had to find an area I really enjoyed where there was knowledge that was like not generally known. So when I was working at that big bank, I was learning about these problems that I didn't even know existed that were really fun to solve, right? I wanted to build a software company. So I think I've always wanted to do that. And I think my career has always been leading me in that direction. So that was one ingredient. The second was having someone to do it with. There's probably 3 people in the world I would start a company with. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it. I know that's all the founders, but me personally, I think it's just a little bit too lonely for me, especially when you're going through all these things. So my co-founder, Nick, he was at the stage where he was in between. He'd finished up 4 years at a company that he was with from like 50 people to unicorn status, and he was ready to go and do something, and I was ready to go and do something. I had spent 4 years to observe and was feeling pretty good about stuff I learned, and like just seeing the company to a stage I felt good about, right? I never want to leave something in a bad state. This is the thing that we vet people too. If you've hopped around like every year in your career, I'm very skeptical and suspicious, especially in a product role. Like you can't do stuff in a year. Like a year and a half in, you're starting to see all of your decisions come to fruition. And if you really screw things up, a lot of times you get out because you don't want to deal with it. So Nick was very similar, and like he had these 4-year stints. So I had someone I wanted to do it with, who wanted to do it with me. I'm not getting any younger. There was this massive AI shift going on. I mean, we would have done it regardless, but like that certainly helped. And it was just kind of time. It's something I always wanted to do.
Tell me about the company, right? You've been around now a year and a half, 2 years. How long has it been?
Yeah, about a year and a half.
How are you finding it?
It's one of the hardest things I've done. It's also one of the most fun things I've done. Like it is exhausting. It does affect your lifestyle. I'm not as healthy as I was probably a year and a half ago. I'm certainly not making anywhere near the amount of money I was making, which is par for the course, right? You need to have skin in the game here. I've been in leadership roles, and I've run teams, and I've hired people, and I've done all these things. It's different, I think, emotionally when the buck stops with you. There's no one else I can possibly blame. No one is telling me what to do. I'm sure there's a board, but for the most part, like it's on me, right? It's on Nick. So I think that like existential dread is just so much greater at a startup. So that's certainly different. All the other stuff, like doing all the legal crowd, like that's not that bad. You can just get through it, right? Yeah, it's an experience, but I think the thing that it's also important to find the things that drive us as a company. So we love like when a customer is like excited by something and we close the deal and they're like they come back. Like we try to make everyone at this stage of the company. These people are becoming our champions down the road. So we want like if we close a deal and the customer isn't like this isn't one of the best things I've ever seen, we failed. So those moments are like really important for us as a company.
Would you recommend it in the way that things are right now in the market? There's a company coming up every single day and it's saturated, but at the same time, there is opportunity, but there's also a lot of noise. Is this the right time to start a company? Do you sort of wait it out and see how, who's going to be owning the market, who's going to be owning the application layer, who are the big names before you think about starting something?
I think there was always a good time to start a company for different reasons, and you can't really predict the future. I think it really depends on the person and what they want to do and whether or not they really want to sacrifice to go and do it. Like I talk about people, a lot of people talk about starting startups. And a lot of people talk about it. I think very few of them that I've interacted with have actually gone and done it. If you're fine going and doing 50 pitches and getting 50 no's, cool. You know what I mean? Not that we do 50, but the point being is like this elements to it that you're not going to like, that are going to be different than what you thought. Everything is going to be a lot harder. But if that drives you, then great. In terms of the market and saturation, there's always good ideas. And I think one of the traps people fall into, especially engineers, is there's a class of ideas that I call like obviously good ideas. Like, of course you should go and build this thing. It makes like so much sense. Mm-hmm. The problem is everyone is going to go and build that thing because everyone knows it. And it's not to say you can't start a company there, but if you're a late entrant to that space, it's going to be really, really hard. And the investors are going to look at it and go, it's kind of saturated and maybe it's not defensible. So I think what's key is finding like ideas that are either a bit contrarian. Almost every massive like unicorn exit was a contrarian idea. Like Reid Hoffman has a quote about this where when he has an idea, if he has smart people saying it's a bad idea, but he has really good first principles conviction, that's when he goes and wants to do it. And that's been true, right? Like I think if you would pitch me like Facebook, I would say, whatever, we can make a social network in like a day. Who cares, right? Even OpenAI, right? I was using it very early on. I was like, it's Transformer. I was a little skeptical, like, if you're really going to use it, it's really bad right now, whatever. So I think most of these companies, when you look at them, at the time, they were very contrarian ideas. So that's one approach, or just finding really like an expert space that you know about, that you've learned about, that people can't just go and easily copy because they don't have the knowledge and connections. But most of the companies that you see are noisy companies in this obviously good idea bucket where everyone's going to go start a company that can code because, of course, an engineer wants to build an automated QA tool using AI. Like, yeah, obviously you should build that.
And Ross, what about founder market fit? Because that's another concept that comes up a lot when I speak to investors. Some say it matters, others say it doesn't matter. What's your thoughts on it?
I think it matters. It depends on the space you're going into. Like I'm in cybersecurity. So I meet with chief information security officers at massive global companies. And I think if I had done this when I was like 22, they probably wouldn't take me seriously. Not because I'm dumb, but just like, does this person really know about the problems they have? Like, can they, I read a blog post on this, like, how do you build, it's like, what is it? It's trust is like knowledge plus expertise or something like basically, do they believe that like, it's intent and expertise. So like, okay, I have this person, they're trying to sell me something. Do I believe that they have the right intent, that they want to help me? Yes. Okay, do I believe that they know enough about this problem? Yes. I've met with companies where they pitched me this like AI trolling thing that we could have used. And I'd ask them like, okay, so it's an evaluation system for voice agents. We build those. Have you ever built one? They go, no. I'm like, okay, I don't trust you to be able to build something that requires expert knowledge of this without that. So I think it can be gained. I do think it's important depending on the space that you're in. And that was actually when Nick and I sat down and made our list of ideas, one of the columns in the stack ranking was founder market fit. And there's things that like our team is great. We probably can go and build like a Linux kernel module so easily. Maybe we figured it out, but like it's not worth the time it would take us to go and pivot and figure it out versus a different team that could go and do that.
I agree on that point because I feel like as an investor, when I'm looking at companies to invest in, I mean, maybe this is my recruiter hat on, but I do look at the profile of the founders and I just ask myself this question, can they build this? They're a great engineer, potential founder, etc. But is this the right person for this job?
Like consumer, I would never touch, I know nothing, I've only built B2B enterprise software. I could try to build consumer, but that'd be bad. I know nothing about that and I don't pretend to. That's an area where like our team is like that too, where like we could build an app, but are we gonna be able to do the growth part of it right? Are we know to promote the thing, like the experience, not in our wheelhouse. But building really complex enterprise software for large enterprises, cool. That's bread and butter. There's a lot of hidden knowledge in there.
It's crazy you say that because when I look at our clientele, companies we've recruited for over the years, I can't think of a single one that's consumer facing. It's all B2B.
Well, there's your founder market fit for Harrison Clark, right?
The next concept, next piece of importance when it comes to startups is product market fit and getting there. Now, before you went to fundraising, you had the ideation phase. You and Nick were sitting down thinking about what to build. Did you spend some time speaking to potential customers to vet the idea?
Yeah, that was part of the, this was the second idea we did. For each idea, we basically went down and said, okay, let's see if we can get 30 meetings and see how many of those will convert to someone wanting to be a design partner, like paid, like not. People say design partner. Like people would like pay us money for this thing. And the first idea we did, we got to the point where like we couldn't even get meetings by the end of the 3-month sprint. We're like, this is going to be a cursed market. Second idea, we had when we decided to start exploring the pivot, I started doing cold outreach on LinkedIn. I think I had like 5 meetings lined up pretty quickly. So because you got to think about if you're going to do direct sales, what's the funnel going to look like? And if you can't do it, how the hell is a salesperson going to do it? We'll never be able to scale the thing. So it's very important for us to have something where we could look at a proto pipeline. Can we get meetings? Cool. When we get those meetings, are people interested to convert to being a paid design partner or not? And we wanted to get 3 to 5 minimum. So that's what we did before we got conviction on the idea.
That's awesome. And your background is product, as I know. Nick's background, what's his background like? Nick
is like a jack of all trades engineer. He spent time running infrastructure teams, so that's included security often. But Nick's a rare bird in that he can not only do full stack software development, he can also do all the infrastructure. So it's really nice when building a complex enterprise product because he can go in and fill any skill set that's kind of needed. And we built around that. So the first engineer that we hired was a front-end engineer because that's one of Nick's softer spots, for example. He can do it. It's not his strong suit. And there's other things he'd be doing that are harder to recruit for, right?
Ross, when you went to the pre-seed, you were going through the pre-seed stage and you were fundraising for that, how much did that differ from, actually, let's circle back to the pre-seed. I'm assuming it was just a PowerPoint at this stage. There was no product.
Yeah, it was a PowerPoint with a prototype. The pre-seed was people investing in us to go figure something out, right? There's these folks at South Park Commons to their founder fellowship, which is basically an accelerator. They didn't like our idea. Let us know that, but they believed in us. They're very clear on you have a path to proving this out, go prove it out, right? And they asked us, if it doesn't work out, what will you do next? And I listed off 5 things. Okay, seems reasonable. Despite thinking it wasn't a great idea, they supported us through the whole thing, right? Never doubted because they believed in us as founders, and VCs are often wrong more than they're right.
I mean, South Park Commons, I've heard a lot of great things. You and I both know Devani. She's amazing, which she told me a lot about it as well. At that pre-seed stage, how much did that differ The sort of conversations, as you said, they didn't really believe in the product, but they believed in you as founders. Where you are today as a company, you raise your next round. How much do you think that's going to differ in terms of you get into that room with where you are right now, the product you have, the design partners, customers, to where you were in that early days?
I think it will look a bit more like the seed pitch. It depends on who we end up raising money from, but I think there'll be a lot more metrics that we're going to have now, right, to be able to talk about. It's more of a business, right? And that's what the A is like, hey, we're proving PMF. So I think it'll be a bit different. There's still a good amount of vibes and what's your vision for the company. And I think this is a good time to talk about something that I really screwed up when I raised the pre-seed that Software Commons really helped me understand, which was how to think about marketing to customers versus marketing to your investors. Like, I've done a bunch of product marketing. I love talking about products. Your investors care about very different things. And a fatal mistake that I see that I made is you confuse your investor marketing with your customer marketing. Totally different. You can't show, like, your customers don't want to see your investor marketing. They don't care about your big vision for the company and your hiring plans. And your investors don't really care about their product, to be honest, right? That was a really big learning that was a little bit fatal. I mean, we got over it and figured it out, but that's like a first-time founder kind of learning.
What would you say, Ross, are your biggest takeaways from this journey over the last 18 months? Hindsight is 2020, right? If you can go back, you would do differently based on the learns of the last 18 months?
It's hard to say. There's areas where in hindsight, I'm like, we should have doubled down there faster. There's decisions that we should have made quicker, things like that. But I think a lot of the learnings, we just had to go through this process. It would have been nice if we had known during the pre-seed how to do storytell better to investors. That would have been really nice. But I wouldn't have been able to get to the point where I'm doing that without having gone through the lessons of chewing glass for a bit.
You read so many books, you hire advisors, you watch tons of videos on how they did it. Unless you go through it yourself, it's different, right?
No one's telling the truth too. Like, a lot of the stuff out there on the early days of the company is like whitewash PR stuff that's been put forward as part of when a company's an IPO. Like, oh, yours was our vision the whole time, and it's very rare that people tell you what really happened or want to talk about the bad experiences publicly, unless you know someone. So it's actually really difficult to get good signal on this stuff without talking to people. Like, my advice if you haven't found a company is go talk to some founder that you know or that you're close to, reach out to. There's almost a rapport that gets built instantly if you're going through it, or if I message another founder at almost any company, they'll probably respond and meet with me and try to help me out just because they know how hard it is.
I mean, that's the great thing about Silicon Valley, right? The serendipity of it. Next topic, which is one that is dear to my heart, AI and its impact on hiring. There's been some interesting controversial adverts, on the Embarcadero BART station. There's ones all around in New York now where you can hire an AI. You don't need to hire humans anymore. Things are changing. There's so many different things coming out in the market. What's your thoughts on AI and its impact on hiring?
Any particular area you want me to dig into first? Interviewing, recruiting, what's top of mind for you?
I think recruiting is a really good topic. It's one that, as I said, is close to my heart. But also, I think it's even engineers now. Are they worried about what their career is going to look like over the next 18, 24 months? I
think the people that are working with AI continuously are not that worried, especially more senior people. They're like, well, this is an extension of me now, and we didn't have enough people anyway. I don't think anyone is thinking this is going to eliminate engineers. So there's something called reinforcement learning, right? Where I can AI learn math by having something that can say if the math proof is correct, right? And then this can run automatically. So for problems where you have this closed loop where you can verify something formally, AI will destroy all those areas. The problem is that, especially in business, a lot of these problems aren't you can't just know. So I think a lot of the job is still going to be working with people that translate business problems into technology solutions, stuff like that. So I'm not super worried. I am worried about new engineers coming in, junior engineers. I think that the bar is higher now because we basically have a shitty intern, right? It's called Claude, 3.7 sonnet thinking. So the bar now is okay, are you better than that? And a lot of people aren't. When I was coming of age as a technologist, I didn't have to really learn low-level operating system stuff or assembly, and I went back in some of it, but I could just write higher level code, right? Third generation languages. And some stuff was lost around understanding some of the system. And then when I saw the next generation of engineers come, after me, a lot of them didn't know much about how a computer worked, networking and things like that, because they didn't need to, right? And that knowledge is lost. That's why it's hard to build good on-prem software now, for example. People don't even know how to do it. So with AI, if you grow up using AI, you're not going to potentially learn some of these things the hard way by doing it. And I think it's going to be a massive disservice to folks. And also, if you're working, like you're a junior engineer, it's your first job, you're working remotely, you have AI, you're not going to get the mentorship that other people had. So I really worry about people coming to the workforce if they even pass that bar in the first place.
That's exactly what I'm hearing. I think the term that I keep hearing is first principles, the lack of. What does that mean to you as a founder, as a CEO, as an engineer, product leader, when that term is used in the market today, the need to understand first principles? What does that mean?
I think it means, can they take a problem and break it down logically? I mean, there's two sides to it. There's do they understand the requirement side of it? And I think that, like, you still, even with the AI, you need to figure that piece out, right? How do I structure a problem in a way that we can actually go and solve it? And then there's the technology side of it, which is what pieces do I need to build within the software to go and make this happen? And yeah, I mean, maybe it's harder now because AI can just kind of guess at a lot of these things, and you can just iterate, and you can just keep sampling until you get to the result that you want. You know, we had someone that didn't quite work out. We parted ways with them, and we kind of look back at how we were doing interviews. Going into this wave, we were very big on, like, we should let people use AI in coding interviews because they're going to have AI at their job, right? And we're trying to do interviews that aren't just like random, like riddles and things like that, and like crazy math. Like, we want to do like things that are analogous to what you do at the company. Can you go and build small features? And what I think we realized was that we weren't getting the right signal because it's hard to discern the AI from the human when they're using it. But also, we were like, wait a second. We were like, before this, we had like experience of like a decade of screening engineers. Why don't we just keep doing that? Like, why introduce this new radical thing when we had a pretty good way of screening people? Let's just go back to that. And I think that was really important learning for us. Other folks are kind of going through to the point where, like, I think Nick's philosophy now is, I'm not sure if we're going to do this, but he was hypothesizing. He's like, I think for the first month, if you're an engineer at this company, you shouldn't have access to coding tools. You should go and learn the code base. If you can't do that without the coding tool, how can you possibly steer it in the right way? Because it doesn't really know how to navigate the code base, at least today. So great. We have a bunch of microservices and this monorepo and stuff like that. And we're not doing that, to be clear. But it was an interesting idea of, like, yeah, there needs to be like a training wheels mode where folks actually come in and like learn the institutional knowledge before using these tools that will obfuscate everything away.
I love that. I think the only, just I guess, caution or concern is, as a startup and as a company in a really fast-paced industry, as founders, you're probably thinking, we need to ship faster, we need to deliver faster. And when you've got great products out there today, like Augment Code, like Cursor, and so forth, other companies are providing these tools, they're at your disposal, right? And you can go ahead and use these. An engineer comes in from day one, could get to the code quicker, can distribute the code faster.
I think that if someone came in blindly and didn't know the code base and started using these tools and they ship those things, they'd be shipping like crap. And we've seen that. Like, if you go and use these tools without knowing how the system really works, it's going to make lots of mistakes that you're not even aware of. So you're not really going faster. You're just getting a bunch of like short-term tech debt and a bunch of really angry code review comments. Not angry, but just like, really, like, if you kept doing this, like, okay, this is not how this works, let's sit down and go over this. I don't think you'll really go faster. And actually, I think our vibe coding usage has actually gone down as a company the last few months. Really? Yeah, I think one of the engineers isn't even using that much. Like, he's not using any of the full modes anymore. He's just going and talking to these tools in a chat context and coming back because he found we were making so many mistakes in our code base that it wasn't really worth it.
As far as like the hiring itself is concerned, because another key problem in the market now is, and I hear this a lot from hiring managers, the engineer is doing the interview, conducting the interview over Zoom, but is using an AI to help them, prompting them. How do you combat that problem?
Easy. We're hiring people, engineers in the Bay Area, not remotely, and we're trying to figure out the signal quickly to get them to an onsite.
Yes. I was hoping you say that.
Look, I don't think you have to build in person. I think as a startup at this really early stage, it's really important to have everyone in the same room, at least for us, right? There's just so many decisions that get made quickly, and like everyone's happier and we work better when we're together for some amount of time. And there's other ways to emulate that, but that's just how we're going to build this company.
Not only do I love that, but I also think that's where the market is heading. It is rare to hear remote jobs now. It's all in office. I think even the terminology of hybrid doesn't exist. It's flexible. You can you can work from home on a Friday if you need to do something, but the term hybrid versus remote versus on-site is just on-site with flexibility. I mean, even our company, Harrison Clark, we don't offer hybrid anymore. We just say it's flexible for you to be in the office or not on a Friday, but 4 days you've got to be in office, which is a good thing because I feel like we went through this phase in 21, 22 where all of a sudden the idea around being in an office around a team became a burden, right? And I don't get it. What's your thoughts on that?
Like everything that's discussed in social media, there's a religion about this now. Some people are like really adamant, like, we have to do in person or you have to do remote. And like, I think you can do both of them. I think there's a lot of very successful companies that were remote first, but you have to pick a model. Like you can be fully remote or you can be in person. I don't think you can like kind of go and do both so easily. And like we'll have some elements that are going to be remote, but like the core product stuff will be in person. So I think you can build a company going both ways. I just think you have to pick one.
What's the one you've picked?
We picked going like being in person from day one. That was really important. Like GitLab was all remote. I think CrowdStrike is remote. Like there's really great companies that are fully remote. Like Cribble, I work for Clint. They're remote. It's fully remote. With an office, people come in, but you don't really have a desk. So I don't get the religion around it. I just think you should pick what's best for your business and what you want to do and figure it out.
And how do you know what's best?
I think it's a little bit, it comes down to personal preference, to be honest, I think. Like, how do you think that you're going to build a team around you? How do you work better? I work better when I'm in person. I think so does Nick. So we picked that way. There are some folks that doesn't work for them. And also benefits, like what are you going to be paying salary-wise? Can you afford to hire people in person in the Bay? Maybe you can't. Maybe you got to offshore. Maybe it'd be an advantage to you because you can hire people that are kind of untapped potential because they're working remotely somewhere. So I think these are all considerations.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I want to go back to our first topic before we wrap up for the day. But I do want to go back to that initial topic around social engineering. It's linked quite closely to the company you're building. It's another key topic in the market today because you watch all these deepfakes now. I saw a video earlier today. It was Trump and Elon Musk, and it's obviously a deepfake, but there's deepfakes everywhere now. Like you talk about those 30-second videos, the shorts. Most of them you don't know if they're real or not. The whole kind of concept of deepfakes has become so intertwined with what's real, and it's so hard to ascertain and distinguish between the two. Now, in that sort of world, it impacts, I guess, every industry, media, security, tech. The company you're building today, you've got a journey. You've got a long journey of all the different products you're going to build and the problems you're going to solve. How does your company look to solve the deepfake problem?
I think that the deepfake problem isn't like a singular problem. I think it's very different. There's a new law that's passed where people are creating pornography off of people, and that's now illegal. Like, there's so many different areas that you can look at it. So in your personal life, I'll talk about Mirage, which is focused on the enterprise. I don't view it as a deepfake problem. I view it as a social engineering problem. It may not be a deepfake. It could just be a person. I could put on a fake mustache, right? The methods and tactics are kind of the same, which is the good news. The stuff that you do for a human will work against an AI. The bad news is, well, there's going to be a lot more of it now because of AI, so you got to get your act together. But like a lot of the techniques of like, hey, get rid of passwords and use passkeys, right? Don't use SMS as a multi-factor authentication. Do identity verification. Check your processes for dealing with this stuff. Like none of that's any different for a deepfake or for a person. And one of the things that we'll look at in the future too is getting very big in this, like how to identify I'm talking to someone internally on like a Zoom. Like there's ways to solve that will work for deepfake or not deepfakes. I read a blog post on why I'm very bearish on this idea of like detecting deepfakes. I don't think it will be possible. Like detecting I don't think it'll ever be reliable enough. There's no technical reason that it can't be like virtually impossible. And that comes around to what you do in the personal life. So there's this group called the Coalition for Content Provenance and Authenticity, c2pa.org. Adobe's part of that, Microsoft, I think Facebook. And basically, they're building a standard to digitally sign and attest to content with a chain. So like I could get a screenshot from this talk, I could sign it, and I'd take a photo of my camera, sign it, you could go edit it, and we'd actually see Faraz edited Ross's photo. You could see this whole chain. The platforms are going to start to adopt that, hopefully. And then it comes down to, okay, like there's only a few big social media platforms. So as long as like Facebook and Twitter and all these guys do it, I'll at least know for the stuff that we care about, like the Associated Press, this is a video from a journalist from the AP that was edited and signed. So I think we'll get to a point where we just have better filters for the internet for content that applies to world news, and we'll learn how to deal with this stuff. But I think back to verification, it's the only way, right? Look at authenticity, don't look at detecting the fakeness of it because that's like impossible.
That's interesting. So what you're saying is rather than looking how fake it is, look how authentic it is.
Look at how real it is and who produced it. We've had technologies for a long time that do stuff like that. So all this technology has been de-risked. It's going to be the social application of it that's going to be the challenge. But like it will be in Photoshop. Like you'll sign something and it will know, hey, there's a certificate here. Let's go and extend, and I can publish it, and we can easily see that like I got a photo from the AP's website and I put it in here, and there you go.
Ross, couple of final questions from my side. Again, you're building a company to solve a big problem, but what's your gut telling you about AI? Are you excited about it? Are you scared? Are you worried? Are you in this world where you don't know where this is going to go?
I'm pretty excited. I think that I'm a little bit bearish on this idea of we're going to get like an artificial superintelligence anytime soon. And the reason being is that whenever these things learn a new task right now, these companies go and they have to go get a ton of data, and they have to go and then like train the model on that and put it back in, and to get it to be reliable. If that's what we have to do for every problem, one, there's tremendous GDP to be unlocked. Like this would be very, very useful, but that doesn't mean we're going to have a runaway superintelligence with the current technology stack. At least I don't think, given the way that the progress and the way that we're trading these things. I'm still very bullish on it. I think it's going to be amazing and transformative to enterprise. Like if AI development stopped today and just left us what we have right now, there's a ton of GDP to unlock. So I'm very, very bullish on that. I do think there's going to be like societal implication. Things are going to get a little bit weird. There's a good question, which is, are we going to be happier and healthier because of it? I don't know. I think if we look at the last generation of like technology and the way it got applied to the consumer world, which I don't know a ton about because I'm building enterprise software over here, I don't think anyone's can say that they're happier or healthier because of technology right now. And probably the opposite might be true. I think people are lonelier. I think people have more access to devices. Like, I don't think it's been a net benefit, but companies are certainly more profitable. So I think that will continue.
That's definitely an interesting topic because if I walk into one of my relatives' house, whether it's my brothers, sisters, friends, most of the time everyone's on the phone in the corner, just like flicking across, and you look around and you think, wow. I remember growing up, there were no phones. It was Sega Master System and Pokemon, and it was a different world where there was actual social communication happening between people, and to see that go away. Like my nephews and nieces, they don't know that. They know the iPads, they know TikTok. That's what they know. That's their form of entertainment. You said something earlier on which really piqued my interest. You said over the last 18 months, it's been fun. You've enjoyed it, but at the same time, it's also been tough. Running a company is not easy. Talk to me about that. What are the things that you've experienced that have had impact on your personal life, and what advice would you give to founders today? Advice that can help them maintain some sort of well-being whilst building great companies.
I think you need to make time. I still find time to work out, not as much as I used to. There's this balance of like, we have to make time, but also like, this is your shot. You have to like grind through this, but also not to the point where you're useless. And this balance is different for everyone. It's like, yeah, sometimes I just like, maybe I have to just like leave a little early on a Friday just because like it was a crazy week, like this is a marathon, not a sprint. So we're very cognizant as a team of like, we grind when we need to grind, but also it needs to be time where we chill out. But like, I haven't really taken a vacation, like anything more than a couple of days in a very long time since doing this. I don't think I really could, to be honest. Every day is so important when you look at your burn, your runway, and like, so I think that the companies that should always be in the back of your mind, and it should be because it needs to be because you're doing something really hard. But yeah, I think that just the highs are really high and lows are really low, and it can change like in a heartbeat. You go from like, this was the best thing ever to like, now I can't see past this new problem that emerged. And your reward for doing a lot of good work is congratulations, here's even more work.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. And I think for me, it's challenging personally because
you have a business too, right? I mean, that's very...
And it's traveling, as you sort of pointed out. I'm between London and New York. I used to live in LA, and just constantly going back and forth between the two cities is very challenging. And the other thing is life, right? Life throws things at you that you don't expect. And when they do, you're running a company. As you said, you're constantly looking at the burn rate, what's happening. You got employees. There's a lot to think about. It's very stressful. And it's an important question. It's one that we like to ask at the end of every episode. And it's about reading. Now, there are many entrepreneurs out there, many thinking about starting that journey, and many that are not thinking about starting that journey, but they're at their companies and they love to read good books. I'm an avid reader. Have you come across a book that you've read that if you look back at it right now, in hindsight, you think that book really, really helped, or even one that you're reading today, one that you would recommend to a current founder, a future founder, that's truly resonated with you?
Yeah. So when I left Observe, I asked Keith, who's our CRO, who's an amazing salesperson, if you could only recommend one book to your sales team, what would it be? And he recommended this book. It's called Let's Get Real or Let's Not Play by Mahan Khalsa and Randy Lillig. It's not one of those like fluffy high-level pop psychology, but it's just like, these guys are doing consultative sales at a company that was really doing services. When you're early at a startup, like it feels a little bit like services because you're building something for them, right? You don't have anything. So a lot of the sales tactics are really similar and just like qualifying intent and like structuring the business problem, learning in the organization. And I feel like a lot of founders probably haven't done that. So I think that's a really high impact book. I have a list of books on my website, rosslaser.com. There's like a books tab, right? And there's a bunch of books on software engineering and business that are up there. I love Peopleware and Mythical Mammoth and software engineering. Just like timeless lessons on, I think about building software and building a team, I think is really important. Those are probably the big ones. It's either like I want to do something that's like very like applied, or I want to do something that's like the source text that's really dry and gets into details. I don't like things in the middle where a lot of the New York Times bestsellers are like that. They're like, you could have wrote the entire book in 10 pages. And it was like one idea, right? I want like really like structured, like dense information.
Do you read often?
I do, not as much as I used to. I alternate between reading really dry nonfiction and science fiction. I actually get Asimov's science fiction magazine delivered every couple months. It's like a pulp with different short stories. And yeah, I try to read a good amount of nonfiction. Occasionally I'll pick up fiction, but I've fallen into this pattern of sci-fi, nonfiction, sci-fi, back and forth.
Nice. That's awesome. Ross, it was a pleasure to have you on the show. We touched on some very key topics. There's a lot more to unpack. As I mentioned to you, these early episodes are designed to be remote like they are right now, but evidently when we get a bit bigger, probably after the 30th episode, we'll start to do them in person. So I'd love to have you back on or come down to the office and record another shorter episode, but one that's hyper-focused on where you are at that particular moment in your journey. If anyone wants to reach out to you, whether it's a potential customer, an engineer who wants to potentially pursue a company like yours, I'm sure they can reach you directly on LinkedIn, or if there's any particular way you'd like them to reach out.
Yeah, feel free to add me on LinkedIn. You can go to rosslazer.com, Lazer. That has my links to all of my social profiles, Twitter, LinkedIn. And then our corporate site is miragesecurity.ai if people want to get a demo or they think we can help them with one of these problems.
Awesome. Ross, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This podcast was brought to you by Serrano Labs and powered by Harrison Clark. At Harrison Clark, we're at the heart of Silicon Valley's evolution and at the intersection of search and venture, funding the companies shaping the future and connecting them to the most elite cloud, data, and AI talent. To learn more, visit harrisonclark.com. If today's episode challenged your thinking, then share it with someone who's driving innovation. For even more insights on achieving product market fit, subscribe to our newsletter, the PMF Playbook, where we break down the journey from zero to product market fit. Visit thepmfplaybook.com. For more episodes, follow us on social media or visit insidethesiliconmind.com. Until next time, stay curious, stay consistent, and stay inside the Silicon Mind. See you soon.